The unseen architects of today's financial futures. The paradox of modern finance is this. The most powerful forces shaping our economic future rarely have names the public recognizes. They do not stand on trading floors shouting orders, nor do they appear on television ringing bells. Yet with quiet precision, they influence interest rates, asset prices, currencies, and even the cost of living for billions of people. While politicians argue on camera and markets react in real time, the real architecture of the financial future is being designed elsewhere, slowly, methodically, and often invisibly. To understand who these unseen architects are, we must first confront an uncomfortable truth. Markets are not purely natural systems. They are constructed, designed, maintained, and sometimes distorted by human decisions made far from public view. The origins of invisible power. For most of history, financial power was visible. Kings minted coins. Empires taxed trade routes. Banks sat behind stone walls, and wealth moved at the speed of horses and ships. Influence was obvious and often brutal, but the Industrial Revolution changed everything. Capital began to move faster than armies. Credit became more powerful than cannons, and finance slowly detached itself from physical goods. By the early 20th century, new institutions emerged to manage this growing complexity. Central banks, international lenders, regulatory bodies, and private financial firms took on roles once reserved for monarchs and empires. Their mandate was stability, but their influence would stretch far beyond it. The creation of the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England's modern role, and later the International Monetary Fund and World Bank marked a turning point. These institutions were designed to prevent chaos. Yet in doing so, they became gatekeepers of global liquidity, the invisible oxygen of the world economy. Central banks, the silent conductors. At the heart of today's financial system sits central banks. They do not produce goods. They do not campaign for office, but their decisions can lift or sink entire economies. A single interest rate adjustment can determine whether businesses expand or collapse, whether governments borrow cheaply or drown in debt. Central bankers speak in careful language. Every word is measured. Every pause is analyzed. Markets do not wait for action. They move on expectation. This makes central banks uniquely powerful. They shape the future not only through policy, but through belief. Over time, this power has grown. Quantitative easing, emergency lending facilities, and balance sheets measured in trillions have turned central banks into dominant market players. They buy bonds, support banks, stabilize currencies, and quietly decide which risks are acceptable. They are not villains, but they are not neutral either. They are architects, designing frameworks that determine who survives financial stress and who does not. The shadow role of global institutions. Beyond central banks lie international financial institutions whose influence is even less visible. The IMF and World Bank do not govern nations, yet their recommendations shape national policies across the developing world. Bailouts come with conditions. Conditions reshape labor laws, subsidies, public spending, and currency regimes. To struggling nations, these institutions represent rescue. To critics, they represent constraint. Either way, their impact is undeniable. When a country restructures debt or reforms its economy, the fingerprints of these institutions are often present, quietly guiding outcomes in the name of stability. Their architects rarely face voters. Their power flows through technical expertise, financial necessity, and global consensus. Influence without visibility becomes normalized, and over time, it becomes permanent. Financial engineers and market designers. But the architects of the future are not only public institutions. In private offices and research labs, financial engineers design the products that dominate modern markets. Derivatives, structured products, algorithmic trading systems, and high-frequency strategies have transformed finance into a world measured in microseconds. These innovations are often presented as tools for efficiency and risk management, and many are. But complexity creates opacity. When markets become too complex to understand, accountability fades. Risk spreads invisibly until it suddenly concentrates. The 2008 financial crisis revealed this reality. Instruments designed to distribute risk instead magnified it. Models built on historical data failed to predict human panic, and systems optimized for profit collapsed under stress. Yet after the crisis, the architects returned. Regulations tightened, but innovation resumed. Financial futures are still being built, now faster, more automated, and more global than ever before. Data, algorithms, and the new architects. In the 21st century, data has become capital. Algorithms now shape trading, lending, insurance, and investment decisions. Artificial intelligence evaluates creditworthiness, predicts market movements, and executes trades faster than human thought. These systems are built by small teams of engineers and analysts whose names will never appear in headlines. But their code influences who receives loans, which assets rise, and how volatility spreads. Biases, intentional or not, become embedded into financial infrastructure. Markets increasingly respond not to fundamentals, but to signals generated by machines interpreting machines. Feedback loops emerge. Volatility feeds volatility, and human oversight struggles to keep pace. The architects of this system are not malicious, but they are powerful, and their work reshapes the future silently, line by line of code. The human cost of invisible design. For ordinary people, these systems feel distant until they are not. A rate hike raises mortgage payments. A currency shift increases food prices. A credit algorithm denies opportunity. Financial architecture becomes lived reality. What makes this power dangerous is not its existence, but its invisibility. When influence operates without public understanding, trust erodes. Markets appear irrational. Institutions feel unaccountable. And citizens sense that decisions affecting their lives are made somewhere else, by someone else. This gap between power and perception fuels instability. Not just economic, but social and political. Modern relevance. A future already designed. Today, the future of finance is being shaped by climate risk models, digital currencies, geopolitical fragmentation, and demographic shifts. Central banks explore digital money. Private firms build parallel financial ecosystems. Nations compete for capital in a system they do not fully control. The unseen architects are preparing for futures most people have not yet imagined. Some designs will succeed, others will fail, but all will leave consequences. The question is not whether architects should exist. Complex systems require design. The real question is transparency, accountability, and balance. The final insight. The greatest myth of modern finance is that markets are spontaneous. They are not. They are engineered by institutions, by incentives, by technology, and by belief. The architects of today's financial futures may remain unseen, but their work defines the boundaries of possibility for billions. History teaches us this. Systems built without visibility eventually face resistance. Futures designed without inclusion eventually fracture, and power exercised without understanding invites instability. The unseen architects will continue their work, but the future they design will ultimately be judged not by markets, but by people living inside the structures they create.